We worship 4,000 horsepower locomotives. But what happens when a prime mover detonation tears that massive engine completely apart? When a 16-cylinder diesel hauls heavy freight up a mountain, the engine block acts as a steel vault. It is designed to contain thousands of violent combustions every single minute. Deep inside the crankcase, a microscopic bearing failure can turn that vault into a bomb. The steel connecting rods snap. The lubricating oil vaporizes into a highly explosive mist. In a fraction of a second, the heaviest engine on Earth violently detonates from the inside out. When the block shatters, pistons become unguided artillery shells, ripping right through the steel car body of the locomotive. How does an engine designed to pull 15,000 tons suddenly sandblast its own guts into shrapnel? And what happens to the crew when the machine they trust turns into a fragmentation grenade? 4,000 horsepower is not just a number. It's a living, breathing threat. Stand next to a 16-cylinder EMD 710 at full throttle and you feel it in your teeth. That block has to cage the violence of 950 crankshaft revolutions every minute. Each piston weighs as much as a sledgehammer. Multiply that by 16. Now picture the whole assembly hurling a 15,000-ton coal train up a 1.5% grade in the Powder River Basin. The vault holds back enough force to rip through 6 inches of cast iron if anything goes wrong. Every second, hundreds of gallons of 40-weight oil whip through the galleries, fighting friction and heat. Miss a single beat. Let a bearing run dry, let a rod cap loosen, and that steady diesel rhythm turns ugly. The floor starts to shake. A metallic stench crawls up your nose. That's the vault warning you. All that mass, all that fire, straining to get out. When the vault fails, nothing survives. You never get casual with a prime mover, not if you want to keep your fingers. In every roundhouse from Lagrange to Erie, there is an old saying, respect the vault. That block is not just steel and bolts. It is a sealed furnace holding back the kind of force that can drive a coal train through a mountain. You treat it like a loaded weapon. Every time I walk the catwalk, I listen. I feel the floor. I smell for that sour metallic tang of hot oil. Shop hands joke about engines having moods, but it is not a joke. The vault gives you warnings if you know how to read them. Miss one, and you are not walking out. That is why the first rule in the shop is simple. Never trust a quiet vault. If the block goes silent, the fire is already out and the danger is loose. You do not get a second chance. The vault is there to keep the fire in. When it cracks, nothing you do matters. Every EMD 710 and GEFDL block is fitted with a crankcase ventilation loop. The heart of that loop is the adductor tube. It's not magic. It's a venturi, just a steel throat that uses exhaust flow to pull a vacuum on the crankcase. At 1,500 revolutions per minute, you get 30 to 45 cubic feet per minute of dirty, oil-laden air drawn out. That's not just blow by. That's the vapor and mist that builds up every time a piston ring lets go or a seal starts to weep. The adductor dumps it all into the oil separator. Inside, a coalescing filter spins out the oil, drops it back to the sump, and lets the cleaned air head for the stack. It's a closed loop. The vacuum keeps the pressure in the vault just below ambient, enough to pull any stray fumes away from the bearings and seals. The manual says you want at least minus 20 kilopascals at idle. Anything less, and you're not pulling your weight. The air flows steady, like a heartbeat. Lose that suction, and you're flying blind. The vault starts building pressure. That's when trouble gets in. No Hollywood drama, no red button, just numbers, flow, and steel. The adductor doesn't care about your feelings, it cares about vacuum. Miss that, and the vault won't forgive you. Crankcase overpressure, CCOP. That is the line between a controlled vault and a bomb. EMD in Lagrange and GE in Erie both fit their blocks with CCOP sensors, not for show, for survival. The sensor sits on the crankcase vent, reading pressure every second the engine runs. If the pressure inside the vault creeps over +5 kilopascals, the sensor trips. Fuel gets cut, air is dumped. The engine dies before the vault can split. Hit -18 kilopascals and you get a low vacuum alarm, which means the adductor is not pulling its weight or the oil separator is choking. Newer engines run dual set point logic. One threshold for warning, another for full shutdown. The system is supposed to be smarter than the crew. But the vault does not always play by the book. A spun main bearing or a cracked rod can spike pressure faster than any sensor can react. In the shop, we call it a race, the CCOP relay against the fire. Sometimes the relay wins. Sometimes the fire gets out first. That is when the vault cracks and the fire claims everything. Engines don't fail because someone is too heavy on the throttle. 4,000 horsepower does not care about bravado. The real threat is a spun main bearing. When oil disappears, metal grinds on metal and friction takes over. Temperatures at the journal rocket passed 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to ruin steel's temper in seconds. The vault becomes a furnace. Standard 40-weight oil is meant to lubricate, but at 650 degrees Fahrenheit, it flashes and turns to vapor in an instant. That vapor hangs thick inside the sealed block, reeking of scorched metal and burnt oil. The adductor tube and separator cannot clear it fast enough. The crankcase overpressure protection sensor throws out wild numbers. There is a heavy thud through the floor, a screech that slices the air, and a bitter stench rising from the crankcase. The vault is not just containing heat now, it is holding a bomb. Crack an inspection door, and oxygen rushes in. That is when the vapor explodes, blowing iron doors off their hinges. The real danger is losing the oil film. Once the first crack appears, the countdown begins. No one can stop it. You want to know what real violence looks like in a locomotive? Watch a connecting rod come loose at full throttle. Forget the Hollywood nonsense about throttles and red buttons. That is not how these engines die. The vault does not care about drama. It cares about physics. When a rod lets go, it is never because the engine was pulling too hard and just blew up from the heat. That is barroom talk. What actually happens is small: a spun main bearing, a fatigue crack, maybe a missed oil change. The oil pressure drops, metal grinds on metal, the bearing shell starts to melt. You get a hot spot over 1,200 degrees. The vault fills with vaporized 40-weight engine oil. It stinks, acrid, metallic, sharp enough to burn your nose. That is the warning. If you miss it, the next thing is a sick, heavy thud through the floorboards. The rhythm turns ugly. Then comes the knock. It is a rod cap coming loose. The crank keeps spinning. The rod starts to walk sideways. It hammers the block until the steel gives way. In 2019, Norfolk Southern 9207 lost a rod outside Decatur, Illinois. At 6:52 a.m., the engine let out a metallic clatter. The rod punched straight through the block and speared the fuel tank. Fire followed. No injuries, but the locomotive was dead. In February 2020, a prototype EMD 710 G3B on a military test stand in the United States suffered a spun main bearing. The teardown showed molten babbitt sprayed across the crankcase. The vault cracked. Equipment loss, nobody hurt. In May 2021, Western Railway in India experienced an articulated rod failure on a WDP-4B at speed. The pressure spike torched the cab. One man burned. In November 2014, a CSX SD70M2 in Pennsylvania ran dry after a bad filter change. A rod snapped, the block was breached, oil was everywhere. No one hurt, but the block was ruined. In April 2025, Kansas City Southern SD70AC 7701 on a downhill coal drag sustained a rod fracture at the big end. 2 crew members died. The vault ripped open, a fireball on the ballast. Every one of these started with a rod breach. Not a runaway, not a Hollywood overspeed, just a rod, a bearing, and a vault that could not hold back the fire. That is what thrown rods do. They tear steel like paper. They do not forgive. They do not warn twice. Engines don't just run away, they break loose. When a 4,000 horsepower EMD or GE mainline diesel loses vacuum, the governor locks, the throttle dies, and the engine turns predator. Forget the red button, that's a Hollywood myth. Once oil vapor floods the intake, the vault becomes a self-fueling turbine, screaming past redline, burning its own lifeblood. Injectors are useless. The engine drinks 40-weight engine oil straight from the crankcase, unstoppable. On September the 25th, 2021, Amtrak 74 near Limon, Colorado, hit 2,400 revolutions per minute in under 8 seconds. The adductor tube was blocked, no vacuum, the oil separator choked. The event recorder shows a spike from 1,000 to 2,400 revolutions per minute in a single breath. The crew slammed shutdown. Nothing happened. The vault kept spinning, sucking every drop of oil into the intake. The stench in the cab was sharp and metallic, like burning coins and old blood. 2 men died before the block split, fire rolling through the cab wall. The vault cracked. Fire claimed everything. Union Pacific's SDT Mac fleet learned the same lesson in the mid-1990s. In 1996, in Wyoming at milepost 215.7, a main bearing spun. Lost vacuum. The engine went wild. The event recorder logged a jump to 2,800 revolutions per minute before the crankcase overpressure sensor tripped. By then, the vault was a furnace. The block fractured. The fuel tank ruptured. 2 crew were dead. No rescue. Just a wall of flame and a dead locomotive. Engines don't fail from pulling too hard. It is always a defect, a spun bearing, a blocked adductor, a failed check valve. Oil turns to volatile mist. The vault fills with explosive vapor. When the engine runs away, there is no button that saves you. The only option is to run. When the vault cracks, fire owns the shop. Every runaway is a countdown. The rhythm shifts from thump to shriek, then silence. The vault holds back the fire until it cannot. Nothing survives. At 2:10 p.m. Central Time, November 17th, 2020, the BNSF 6200 series EMD 710G 3B let go near Cheyenne. The locomotive event recorder pulled a flat line on engine torque, then the vibration signature spiked. That's when the vault lost its fight. The crew heard an explosive pop, like a breaker bar snapping against steel. Flames shot from the hood. The crankcase split. Shrapnel tore through the car body. The inspection door didn't just come off. It launched. The block ruptured and sent a cast iron slab 40 feet across the right-of-way. The cab wall took a direct hit. Steel peeled back like tin. But nobody died. The crew had bailed. They had seen the warning, floorboards shaking, metallic stench rolling in, the kind that burns your nose and coats your tongue. That's the smell of 40-weight oil vaporized by a spun main bearing. Not, the engine was pulling too hard and just blew up from the heat. That's barstool nonsense. Pulling hard doesn't kill the vault. A spun bearing does. It cooks the oil to a mist. The crankcase overpressure protection system can't keep up. The vault fills with fuel. All it takes is a door cracked open, oxygen rushes in. The mist ignites. That's a secondary crankcase explosion. Doors become shrapnel. Iron turns into ordnance. On this job, teardown photos don't lie. I've seen the aftermath. Block halves twisted, crankshaft bent like a pretzel. Oil everywhere. Chunks of piston skirt driven into the ballast. The shrapnel field stretched past the next unit. The vault was built to hold the fire. Once it cracked, nothing stopped the blast. After the concussion, nothing but silence. No hero button, no last-second save. The only thing that kept those men alive was the time it took them to run. That's the final proof. When the vault shatters, the fire claims everything in its path. Every rule in this job is written in blood. The Association of American Railroads calls it the Unbreakable rule. I call it the only reason I'm still alive. The moment you hear an abnormal thud, see the oil pressure twitch, or smell that sharp metallic stink of vaporized 40 weight, you follow 3 steps. No debate, no shortcuts. 1. Kill the engine. That means fuel, air and oil supply all cut, Dead within 5 seconds. Not 10. Not when you feel like it. 5 seconds. That's the window before the vault fills with enough mist to turn the block into a bomb. 2. Vent the crankcase to the open air. There is a dedicated valve. You pull it, no matter what the dispatcher yells over the radio. That vent is your last shot at bleeding off the pressure building inside the vault. It does not matter if you are rolling at 60 or stuck in a siding. You vent, or you risk the vault turning inside out. 3. Get out. Evacuate the cab, clear the blast radius, and do not re-enter until you have checked for hotspots with an infrared camera. I've seen rookies try to play hero, crack an inspection door, and let a lungful of oxygen butt into a vault full of oil mist. That's how you get a secondary crankcase explosion. That's how you end up with iron doors flying across the yard like artillery shells. No engine is worth your life. The vault does not care about your intentions. It cares about physics. Every Class 1 railroad runs this protocol. That includes BNSF, Union Pacific, CSX, Norfolk Southern, Kansas City Southern, and Canadian National. The numbers prove it works. After the Unbreakable rule went into effect, response times dropped to under 5 seconds. Fatalities from oil runaway detonations dropped to 0. Fires got smaller. The only thing that keeps the fire inside the vault is speed and discipline. You get one shot, miss it, and the vault claims everything. Steel learns fast when it gets burned. After the worst detonations, the engineers at EMD LaGrange and GE Erie stopped pretending the old hardware was enough. They started tearing into the numbers. Too many vaults split wide open. Too many lives lost. The Federal Railroad Administration hammered the point home. They wanted proof, not promises. The first fix was a dual setpoint sensor. No more trusting a single switch. Now, one threshold throws a warning, and the next kills the engine. If the mechanical relay jams, the electronic backup cuts the fuel. It is not about trust. It is about survival. EMD's new crankcase overpressure diaphragm trips at 15 psi, then 25 psi. Both send signals straight to the control module. GE rolled out the ECPM, an electronic crankcase pressure monitor logging every blip, every spike, 10 times a second. If the numbers climb too fast, the system forces a shutdown before the vault can fill with mist. The adductor tube got a bigger throat and a self-cleaning splash guard. There is less chance of plugging up with carbon. Oil separators swapped out rubber for spring-loaded steel valves. They do not melt when the vault gets hot. GE added a vacuum booster, an electric blower that kicks in if the adductor cannot keep up. That keeps the pressure down, even if the main loop starts choking. They did not stop at sensors. Vibration accelerometers now sit on the crankshaft, hunting for the signature rattle of a spun bearing. If the FFT picks up that telltale frequency shift, the engine goes down for inspection. No more guessing, no more running blind. The results are not theory. FRA safety reports show a 68% drop in crankcase explosions since these upgrades rolled out. Incidents fell from over 2 per year to less than 1 per year. Compliance sits at 96%. The steel vault still wants to split, but now the odds are on your side. The hardware finally caught up to the fire. Today, EMD in LaGrange and GEE in Erie weld thicker vaults and sharpen crankcase overpressure protection sensors, but the fire still waits. Hollywood says engines blow up from pulling too hard. That is a lie. It is a spun bearing, a vaporized oil fog, and a green hand cracking the wrong hatch. In the Powder River Basin, the vault holds. Crack it, and the fire claims everything. Let me know your take in the comments.